Alright, this video is fairly simple in theory. It's a breakdown of Darkmoor versus the Catacombs dungeon. Each dungeon will compete in 7 categories that go as followed: visual design, boss cheats, characters, music, story, difficulty/time, and last but not least, the drops. Each category will be worth 1 point, and the dungeon with the most points wins. Blah blah, this is my opinion, blah blah. But yes, I did spend a lot of time researching these dungeons and making this video, so please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, as you're watching, be sure to leave a comment on your thoughts about the dungeons, and if you agree with me or not. Let's move on to the first category, visual design. So Wiz has grown a lot throughout the years, and both dungeons actually look pretty nice, with some quality textures and modeling. Let's discuss Darkmoor's areas first. Immediately upon taking the teleporter, we see the Castle Darkmoor itself in all of its glory. And wow. Seeing this for the first time blew me away. The bats in the sky, the moon, it's amazing. While I like this area the best, inside the castle is pretty nice too. I think the second thing to note is Malistair's battle room. Not only does it have an amazing mirror, but the bone dragon positioned overhead is super cool and epic to fight against. How do the Catacombs areas compare? I actually really like most of this stuff too. The stones and the runes are really cool, and by far the best visuals of the areas are the new crystal projectors. The scenes they create behind the mobs are beautifully drawn and really pull you into the story. Also, the edge of the spiral is an interesting new area with the green liquid waters and hexagonal skies. It also uses colors we don't normally see in Wiz areas. Alright, character design is next. In Darkmoor, Malistair in his Undying form looks similar as he did in his Tekka, so it's slightly disappointing. Wait, holy crap, is that Shadow Malistair? He looks amazing! Also, Shane Von Shane going from a little tiny vampire boss to donning a mech suit doesn't seem like it should work, but it's cool as hell. I can't talk about every character, so I'll just pick one more, and that's Aphrodite. Darn is this boss cool. Green and purple are nice, and the idle tentacle animation is dope. Let's look at the Catacombs and its characters. Lots of monsters just seem like that, monsters. I don't feel like they're super inspired and just appear to be worms with some extra legs and eyes. Hargrove looks alright. Dude is just a Boy Scout bear professor with some books, so nothing visually interesting or new. I think what should be discussed most are the Dragon Warriors and the Tree Minders. I don't hate the new armor. I'll touch on it a little more later with gear, but it just seems like new armor. The Tree Minders, however, are by far the best part of this dungeon visually. Their faces, their robes, they look new and unique like nothing we have seen yet. With all this in mind, both dungeons have some good new designs in both their areas and characters. This one is close, but I would have to give the edge to Darkmoor because it's more visually distinct. The Dragon Warriors aren't anything too new, and the monsters are just monsters. Where the Catacombs are slightly generic, Darkmoor is more visually stylized, with the vampire and graveyard feels everywhere. First point goes to Darkmoor. Second category is boss cheats, and these are important. Let's start with the Catacombs. What I noticed was that a good amount of these bosses have cheats that revolve around Shadow Sentinel. I'm talking about the Gregors, the Renegade Druid, and the plant thing. Out of the 6 bosses, 3 of them have similar bases for their cheats. Also, until the last 3 dungeons, the bosses are super easy and kind of feel like a breeze. Regarding the last 3 bosses, the Renegade Druid is dummy hard if you don't use the Rain of Fire or Supernova strat, and I kind of like that. With those strategies though, the battle becomes simple. Not to mention that this fight is one of the overabundant Sentinel fights. The Satharolith plant thingy fight is insultingly easy, and it's annoying in the fact that you have to hit it at least 4 times. Also, another Sentinel fight. We make it to the last fight of the expansion. Should be the coolest and hardest one, right? No, it's stupid. And dare I say, the worst fight in the whole entire game. Bold claim, I know, but hear me out. The worst part about this fight is that it's extremely RNG heavy. I like my game to have some RNG crits and blocks and whatnot, but if your main hitter with all the blades gets vacuumed up, you have to reset. And that is so annoying. Not only that, but the vacuum mechanic is just plain stupid. Honestly, whoever thought of this doesn't like having fun. Imagine logging on to play a game and the boss just doesn't let you. Stuns and smoke screens are super annoying, right? Earthquake is super annoying, right? If you get sucked up, you lose everything, just like an earthquake. And guess what? You can't cast anything, just like a stun. Here's what is even worse. You can't prevent it or power through it, and you can't gain pips or sort out your hand. You can't even see what cards your teammates are picking. If you get sucked up, you might as well just take a nap until he spits you back out again. Oh, by the way, the first time we did this boss, it took us about 15 minutes and we did it in 10 rounds. There's a video on my channel. When we did Trident, another final boss, that took us a day to figure it out, and therefore it was more rewarding when we beat it. By this metric, Darkmoor should just have the point, but I have to do my due diligence, so let's talk about some cheats in Darkmoor. Malistaire the Undying and his cheats involve him coming back for a second round after you kill him the first time. Brilliant. I love when lore works its way into the boss's cheats, and not in a stupid way like the Devourer. Most bosses in this dungeon have cheats, and they get more difficult the further into the dungeon you go, with the final dungeon harboring the hardest bosses. Some cheats are boring and fairly simple, like if you blade you get stunned, but this dungeon was one of the first places where bosses really cheated. It was so early in fact that there aren't even any late cheats, so I'll give them a little bit of a pass since there was only room to grow from here. Most of the bosses were pretty hard until you knew the cheats and the most effective strategies, but after that they even still maintain a little level of difficulty. Also, it's worth mentioning that you are in charge of most fights. Shane doesn't monster mash randomly, but because you didn't hit him. Again, I do like some RNG, but not a frustrating amount where it ruins the experience and most of the run is just on luck. That being said, I think it's obvious that Darkmoor gets this point, so let's just give it to them. Our next category is characters, and this has to do a bit with the story. Let's talk about Darkmoor. Rainfield is a creepy frog guy that guides you through the first part of the dungeon. His character is pretty one-dimensional. All he wants to do is get you to Shane and Malistaire so that you can die, but he serves his purpose well. Shane, while I think his voice acted well and visually cool, is weak as a character. He is the head of the Darkmoor Manor and is being paid by Malistaire. I'm pretty sure Malistaire offers endless life to other characters like Yavenji, but it seems like Shane is only motivated by greed, which in this case is weak. It's good he isn't the main villain. Tatiana was your ally and was a witch doctor who was kidnapped by the Von Shanes and had her memory erased. You free her and then she teaches you shadow magic and helps you fight Malistaire. She's hinted at earlier in the story in regards to Sir Blackwater, but overall I found her fairly weak and her revenge isn't fleshed out. Malistaire, however, oh boy. This dude is by far the best character in the whole entire game. His goal is that he wants to bring Sylvia back by any means necessary. The only gripe I have is that he has the same motivation as always, even though it's a pretty compelling motivation, and that it really isn't explained why he wants to fight you in regards to saving Sylvia. He says this battle with you will finish it once and for all. Like, will dueling you really bring her back? Regardless, Malistaire is as good as ever here, and the one character that carries this dungeon. We'll talk about his story later in that section. The Catacombs' most prominent character is Professor Hargrove. Yeah, no other way to put it. This dude is annoying. He's scared of everything, driven by knowledge, and drops his books everywhere like he's a flower girl at a wedding. Like seriously, dude just throws his books all over the place. I can't blame the voice actor here because he nailed what he was given, but darn is it annoying regardless. Another prominent character is the Druid Ghost Warden lady. Yeah, she does basically nothing. Just dumps some exposition on you and then tells you to clean up the monsters that escaped. As far as the dungeon's contenders with Malistaire, Prince Vigor is amazing. He starts with clear intentions and motives, greed for the power of the magic trees. Slowly, as the story progresses, the vigor from history differs in the memory vigor in the present as the crystal becomes self-aware. This dialogue sticks out as brilliantly written, and the voice actor did a great job. Unfortunately, Vigor's end is weak, and he fights you for no other motive other than that's what his past self would have done. I don't think it's a bad concept, but it came off rushed and lazy, and felt like a weak motivation that wasn't fleshed out. In the end, Vigor is an excellent character overall, and the strongest one in the Catacombs. It's too bad. Darkmoor and the Catacombs are both carried by one character, and the supporting characters lack depth or are just plain annoying or boring. When it comes to this category, it really can't be that close. Malistaire is the best character in the game, and is the final boss of the dungeon. Vigor goes through a great arc, but is tossed aside halfway through, and his motives for fighting you are weakly handled. Oh, and also, Hargrove is annoying. Did I mention that? The point here has to go to Darkmoor. Right now, Darkmoor has 3 of the 7 points. One more, and that gives them the majority. This category is music. Now, this category is more up to opinion than any other, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Let's start with the Catacombs. The music here is good. There's nothing too special about it, but it's fun to listen to and really carried the mood of the dungeon. Minion fights are strong, and boss fights really pick up in pacing and tone, carrying a weight with them. There are some good riffs in the song that are by far the most unique and my favorite parts. It's worth mentioning that the Drains remixes the Commons theme for what might be my favorite of the new tracks. Overall, the Catacombs music is strong work, but nothing super special. Let's move on to Darkmoor. This music is also really good. The second you step into the area, the music sets the tone with its eerie and ominous nature. The battle music has tension, and I'm kinda disappointed Shadow Malistaire didn't get his own theme. As for my verdict, this one was hard, and both were pretty solid. Unfortunately, Darkmoor has to be the winner, and for one reason. The music in the Catacombs is good, but could kind of be played anywhere in the spiral. Darkmoor's music is super distinct and fits the theme of the area perfectly. So yeah, the point goes to Darkmoor. At this point, it's 4-0, and Darkmoor has already won. So now the question becomes, will the Catacombs even get a single point? For this, we head into the story. Buckle up, we start with Darkmoor. Malistaire challenges you to finish the ongoing fight with him under the laws of Kan Navasi, which means blood feud in Turkish. There are stakes, maybe not for the end of the spiral, but you must stop Malistaire once and for all. You fight through the manor to get to him, defying death along the way, and when you finally get to him, it's time to fight. This battle truly feels like the end of a story and wraps up not only Arc 2, but also Arc 1 as well. From the very beginning of this dungeon, we as the player know who our villain is. Our goal is to get to Malistaire and beat him. It's simple, but sweet. Throughout the fights, characters keep telling you how powerful he is and how you will meet certain doom. This creates suspense and tension within the story. It makes the final victory all the more satisfying. Contradicting this is the Catacombs, which has no clear villain. First is the trash, then it's the people of Dragonspire, then the escaped monsters. With no clear villain or stakes from the beginning, there's little time to build suspense and get the players invested into the story. The trash story is kinda dumb. Students spill a potion on some trash and it comes alive. This feels like a side quest. I do like the idea of how helping with just a little side quest ends up leading to so much more. But honestly, blowing away a wall instead of repairing it is ridiculously hilarious and an awful piece of storytelling. Come on. We are the Scion, who defeated Titans, and we can't even fix a wall properly? The fact that we blow this wall away for no reason, and it happens to be the exact entrance to the Catacombs, feels so contrived and stupid, taking you out of the story. Ignoring that, after our fight with some trash, the next plot thread is with the memory crystals. This story, as I touched on before with Vigor, actually isn't that bad. The fact that they go through endless cycles of recordings and slowly become self-aware is a really cool idea. At one point, the Tree Miners and Dragon Warriors even team up, which is completely out of character for their past, yet still believable in that they want to stop you from tampering with them. Learning about the history of Wizard City, Dragonspire, and the Druids is overall cool. My one gripe is that the whole Catacombs expansion feels less like a story and journey and more just like a history lesson. At one point, Ashley even gives you a darn lecture. Oh, and then we get to the prison. Wow, good timing, Wizard. 3 beasts just broke out and will destroy the spiral. If you didn't arrive here at this moment, the spiral would be destroyed. Honestly, it's so unbelievable, it's insulting. You're telling me to learn about a spiral-ending threat, all of this had to happen. Some students happened to do an off-limits experiment that happened to spill into the drains, that happened to bring trash alive, that happened to also get on some crystals, that happened to become self-aware and lash out, that happened to lead deeper into the catacombs, that happened to bring it to the warden, to let you know that you had happened to show up right as 3 powerful foes escaped. Are you kidding me? Is this a first draft? There are ideas that I like in this dungeon, but overall its plot is just so stupid it's crazy. By the time we get to stopping the creatures, I don't care. Oh, and by the way, you know how your English teachers always say, show, don't tell? I think they missed the memo with Druid Lady. Hey wizard, these creatures are bad, blah blah, stop them, blah blah, the horrors are unspeakable. No tension or building of suspense equals no stakes. I haven't seen how powerful these things are, and we haven't built up suspense until we finally fight them. No, they're just thrown at us as another thing to fight, and therefore I really don't care if we beat them or not. Going back to Malistaire, not only have we fought this dude since the darn tutorial, but taking everything up until the start of Darkmoor away, he challenges us at the beginning of the dungeon. We know we will inevitably have to fight him again. We hear how powerful he has become. There's nothing like this in the Catacombs. The Catacombs seems to aim to begin a story, which will most likely be carried on in Arc 3. Darkmoor ends a story, and ends it perfectly. Let's watch.
It cannot be! I was so close to achieving everything I ever wanted! I asked for so little! Spiral, is this the fate you mean for me?
Dear sweet Malistaire, pain and sorrow have consumed you. Death and shadow have made you into something monstrous. You have to let it all go. You have to surrender your anger and your fear and find peace in the spiral. Can you do this for yourself, for me, for us all? Or else every good thing, including your love for me, will have been for naught.
Surrender? I will do this for you, my love. And for my brother. And even for you, wizard. Even for you. Take what you have learned here this day, and spread good and mercy through the spiral. We will not meet again.
Come, Malistaire. Walk with me to the other side.
Wow, and if that isn't the best scene in the whole game. What a sense of finality and closure. Honestly, I can make a video essay entirely on that one scene and talk about it for hours, but I don't think I need to. I think just watching it is enough, and that's what makes it so great. This is clearly a point for Darkmoor, and frankly, it's not even close. We're now on the second to last topic, and a fairly simple one. Difficulty and time. 2 more chances for the Catacombs to take a point off Darkmoor. When I talk about time, I'm talking about overall time, but also pacing and how worlds like Azteca are super long, but feel even longer. Talking about difficulty is in terms of how hard a world feels. Chrysalis was a good difficulty, Polaris was super easy. Does the difficulty of the dungeon and the pacing/time it takes feel fair and balanced? Let's talk Catacombs first. This, what I want to call a dungeon, is an expansion consisting of 7 separate main dungeons and a few minion fights. Most of the bosses aren't super difficult and can be beat quickly, besides the Renegade Druid and the Devourer. Now this might change with Arc 3, but this expansion feels less like an integral part of the overall story and more like a large side quest. As far as pacing, it's fairly slow and has heaps of dialogue. There are no teleporters, which will hopefully be added later, and no mounts. The hardest bosses are end-loaded, so the front part of the dungeon feels like an easy but super long jog, and the final part feels like a crazy sprint. Darkmoor consists of 3 dungeons that scale in difficulty. The first is fairly easy, the second a little harder with more cheating bosses, and the third, as we know, is a fair challenge. In fact, on release, the 3rd dungeon was super tough before the nerf, and people figured out the best way to approach the fights. What is great about Darkmoor is the pacing is more gradual, and each boss gets slightly more difficult than the last. Each time you enter a sigil, you know the dungeon will take a decent chunk of time. There was a level of difficulty that wasn't impossible, but wasn't easy, and that made each boss defeated and each dungeon beat feel satisfying. Overall, the Catacombs felt bogged down by the story and massive amounts of dialogue. It also had a lack of cheats in some dungeon. I'm talking about you, Vigors Drake. Contrasting with the abundance of cheats in others that felt poorly paced. Darkmoor is more focused on fighting in battles, and the difficulty scales the deeper in you go. This is another easy point for Darkmoor. The last point, and arguably the most important point, the gear. We all do dungeons to experience everything I have said before this point, but let's be honest, we all want that sweet, sweet loot. Does Darkmoor take the sweep here, or does the Catacombs have something to offer in the most important category? Let's talk Catacombs first. So this gear is mainly compared to stuff like Paradox, Corporal, and other loot that came before. Basically, how did this dungeon change the gear, and is it worth it? Let's talk about what is a clear upgrade. The boots are the best part of the new gear and are amazing. Against Paradox, they offer a large increase in resist, along with an item card sharpened and potent that really helps in buff variety. The hats are an upgrade to Paradox as well and give a 0-pip windstorm for their school. The rings are a pure upgrade to what the Mimic ring started and the Paradox ring improved upon. Now let's talk useless gear. The decks don't even exist, the robes are as awful as they have been, except maybe ice, and tanky players should just stick to either Jade or Spooky Carnival, and damaged players to stuff like Malastare and Corporal. The wands are good-ish if you don't have crowns, but everyone has crowns wands, so using these would leave you behind. The amulet is just bad Rasputin. The spells are a cool idea, but this amulet is just not worth overall. While most of the previous mentioned gear seems to maybe have a general idea behind it, whoever designed the Athame is a dunce. There's no reason to even look twice at this Athame, unless you really want to sacrifice damage and love a little extra health with all of your heart. As good as health might be, unless you're an ice approaching 10k, when I look at other people's stats, I look at the most important things like damage. The overall look of the gear is pretty cool, especially the wand, although I wish it was a one-handed sword because I like that casting animation better. The idea to craft them is nice and new, and you don't have to get your specific school drop, which is nice too. The gear dropping from different bosses is a cool concept as well, but not when one of the bosses is literally an elite minion with no cheat. Now this might be changed, but imagine at one point the best boots in the whole entire game dropping from some Drake that doesn't even have 10,000 health. Oh, and don't get me started on the drop rate or how many darn reagents you need. Darkmoor gear is next, and this is mostly going to be compared to stuff that came before like Waterworks, Tartarus, Crafted, and Morganth. As far as pure upgrades go, the hat has resist and pierce, and with Croc is the premier hat for a balanced and PvP oriented build. The robes are dummy good, maybe too good. The boots were solid before crit boots were common, and gave good damage and resist. The idea of pip decks were fairly new, and these let you pick which jewel you wanted, although triangle is by far the best. As far as debatable pieces of gear, we start with the wand. The wand offers a ton of pierce and more block, but less crit than Hades, which was used at the time. Later, packs like Terror's Horde made this wand obsolete except for under very specific circumstances. The Athame is good, both from Afro and Yevgeny, but was debatable compared to Morganth. The amulet increased crit and resist over Morganth, but lost the extra blade along with the block. The Afro ring was the first ring to give critical, but as a sacrifice to damage. Most people stuck with rings like Alpha and Omega at the time. Besides this, Aphrodite dropped energy wands, rings, and Athames. Most of the gear only dropped from Malastare, which was good since he was fairly difficult, so getting the gear was a sense of accomplishment and pride. Unfortunately, this made the first 2 dungeons, minus the amulet from the first Shane fight, useless and no point in farming. Darkmoor's look for gear is really cool in concept, but in reality, looks kinda dumb. Maybe because I've seen it unstitched so much. Overall, Darkmoor feels like it had newer ideas and a bigger change in the meta. Its impact feels comparable to Waterworks, where getting that gear completely changes and upgrades your stats in a major way, and not having that gear makes you feel like a fool. Through all of this, I've yet to mention perhaps the most impactful thing about Darkmoor, the spells. I can't begin to explain how important these spells are to the game, but I will try. 1. They were super powerful and also added more mechanics, not just increasing the damage. Spells had gimmicks, like Weaver now shielding the wizard or FFA putting on a fuel. Not to mention, Glowbugs and Cthulhu are beasts and have no right being as OP as they are. 2. The animations were a massive upgrade. Each spell came with their own environment that really immersed the caster into the theme and style. 3. They were 5 pips and 1 shadow pip. Before this, spells were only cast using noob and power pips, and each spell would just cost 1 more pip than the last. This idea to have them take a shadow pip is a type of creativity and change that Wiz should strive for today. With the spells, it's obvious, but even without them, Catacombs is a slight upgrade, and having Paradox is close enough. Being level 100 and not having Darkmoor, or Exalted Duel, gear is trolling. Darkmoor deserves this point. When I originally designed this video, I didn't think it was going to be a blowout. Some categories are even quite close. There's a good chance I'm biased towards the Darkmoor dungeon, but for good reason. Each category I was thinking, does Darkmoor really deserve this point? And they did. The dungeon was just really well made, and a lot of creativity, heart, and effort went into it. I was looking so many times for something that the Catacombs could win, but I just wasn't going to throw them a bone when they didn't deserve it, and whatever they did just wasn't as good as Darkmoor. In truth, the Catacombs really aren't terrible. Indeed, I'm disappointed in many aspects of the dungeon, but it just seems like Darkmoor was the peak of Wiz, and the same care and creativity hasn't been put into the game since. Darkmoor's story was engaging, its gear satisfying to get, the art design cool and distinct, and most of all, the bosses were difficult yet fun to fight. The Catacombs were truly up against the Goliath, and Darkmoor put them in their place. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like on the video and comment with your thoughts. Did I miss something? Do you disagree with anything? Let me know if you like this concept and if you want to see more of it. Some other verses I have in mind are the level 60s of Waterworks versus House of Scales, the side worlds of Grizzleheim versus Wisteria, and the arc ending worlds of Dragonspire versus Chrysalis versus Imperia. Let me know which of those 3, if any, you would like to see first. I just want to say again that this is my opinion, and this video took tons of time to research, script, and edit together, so hitting that subscribe button would mean a lot to me. Don't worry, I'm still working on the next big project, like the Ragnarok dungeon, as we speak, so keep a lookout on my Twitter Discord for small teasers. I hope you all enjoyed, and have a great day.